Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. It is 10:20, so we're going to go ahead and get started with our next session, Bringing Policy to Life, Successful Outreach Approaches for Energy Efficiency in Public Facilities. Presenting today is going to be Tony O'Donnell and Michael Mandzik. So sorry if I mispronounced that. Any questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the chat, as Tony and Michael will be addressing all questions towards the end of their session. Thank you. Tony and Michael, take it away.
Thank you very much, Deborah. Mike and I are very happy to be here, and we thank you for joining. I see a number of familiar names and faces in the chat box, so this is a great group. I actually am returning, so I was part of this conference last year when we were long before anyone heard the word COVID-19, right? So back, I guess, in March of 2019, there was a PRME conference where we talked about these sustainability goals. So I'm really glad to be back. Mike and I give this a very similar version of this presentation all the time to commercial and industrial. We're both commercial industrial outreach account managers. We work for TRC companies, and TRC is contracted by the New Jersey Clean Energy Program and the Board of Public Utilities to run the commercial industrial portion of the New Jersey's Clean Energy Program. So we're often talking to schools or municipalities and private entities. And so this is nice to present this, and I know Mike is excited to present this in more of an academic setting so that we can talk, we'll highlight the same things we do, but kind of put different fine points on them and why we do it, what is the motivation behind this approach, and with specific regard to how to engage municipalities and school districts. Those are the two big ones that we work with, but there are also other public entities like counties. So I don't want to assume everyone is familiar with the Clean Energy Program. We haven't had marketing for a bunch of years, and actually at the very end of this presentation, Mike will have the last slide and show you our new mascot. So we have a Chloe the Lightning Bug is our new mascot, and so you may be seeing television commercials and hopefully hearing commercials on the radio about the Clean Energy Program. So, and I know that many of you that are involved in sustainability probably are familiar with the program, but some of you may not be. So the New Jersey Clean Energy Program is administered by the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities. They have an office of a division of clean energy, and that office is in charge of the Clean Energy Program. I want to spend more time than I usually do talking about this next point, the societal benefits charge. So that is the charge that actually funds our program. Everyone that pays energy in New Jersey, that uses energy in New Jersey, gets either an electric bill and a gas bill if you use natural gas, some type of utility. If you're using energy in New Jersey, you're paying this charge. It's a really small fraction of your bill, but since everyone that uses energy pays it, it generates a significant pool of money. North of $300 million every year is generated. And a portion of that goes to fund the energy efficiency programs that we'll talk about. So the idea, I also teach, I'll tell you, I have another hat that I teach part-time at the College of New Jersey as an economics professor. And when I teach the chapter on externalities, I always use the societal benefits charge. And I toyed with the idea of pulling a slide from one of my lectures, but I don't want to bore you to death like I do with my students. So I'll just talk about it, but it makes some sense. So and it's called societal benefits charge for a reason. So it's a charge on a bill. Some people that don't like taxes call it a tax. I guess it's a form of an energy use tax, but the reason it's put there is because we recognize that there are external effects from producing energy, right? And because we produce the vast majority of our energy with using fossil fuels, there's carbon emissions. And so we recognize as policymakers and economists, especially, that is an externality that is not captured in the market. So that's why why the societal benefit charge exists. It's raising money from the people that use it. That pool of money is used now to hopefully address that externality. And the way that it's done, the design here is to create these incentive programs for users of energy to upgrade their facilities. And so that's the idea. We're trying to address that, include in the market that negative externality, address it, and hopefully solve it. And so as regards our program goals, you see we have 4 or 5 programs goals listed. The main one that Mike and I deal with on an everyday basis is trying to get people to change their facilities to be more energy efficient. And that involves actually physical changes to facilities. And obviously there are effects on reductions in carbon emissions if we're getting people to use more efficient equipment. We have other goals though. We often try, and so we're here today to educate people. We often, I'll mention in a few minutes, one of our programs is specifically geared just toward education and doesn't involve upgrades at all. We're encouraging people always to change their behavior, try to conserve energy. We obviously, since everyone pays this societal benefit charge, the program is very purposefully designed so that everyone can have a benefit from it. We won't talk about the residential programs here today, but you should be aware as we speak that there are analogs to all the programs I'll talk about. There's something like it on the residential side. So Mike and I deal with commercial industrial sector, but obviously the residential sector uses a lot of energy. In addition to saving people money, hopefully we're protecting the environment by helping reduce emissions. And in 2018, we passed an energy bill in New Jersey, and we have a goal. So the goal is to reach 100% clean energy in New Jersey by 2050. That's only 30 years away, and we're not anywhere near 100%, but we're actually doing better than many other states. So it'll be a slow process, but hopefully energy efficiency helps us get toward there. So we have a bunch of types of different programs to meet those goals. We have customer education programs. There's, as I think I already talked about this, the energy conservation measures, energy efficiency programs. We do have so almost, it might actually be 8 years to the day. I can't remember the exact date. Mike, you might remember when Hurricane Sandy hit. I know it was around Halloween. So we're 8 years out from that, and sometimes we forget lessons learned the further we get from an event, but resiliency is an important part of our program. So we have distributed energy resource programs. Mike's more of an expert on that than I am, and he's going to talk in the second half of the presentation about combined heat and power and some other really interesting programs that get us some resiliency and more energy efficiency. And finally, we have a whole suite of renewable energy programs. Many people, when Mike and I are out at conventions or shows, many people, when they see so you see I'm wearing my clean energy shirt, so they'll look at it and tilt their head and say, "You're the solar program, right?" And I laugh and say, "Yes, we are, but that's only a small part of what we do." So Mike will cover some of that when we get to the second part. So fairly large program, as I mentioned, that we generate a lot of money through that societal benefits charge. So I want to give you the numbers to give you some idea of the impact. I'll use the fiscal year 19 numbers because the fiscal year 20 numbers are not yet available, because it would be a weird comparison because, as you'll recall, because of COVID, the governor extended New Jersey's fiscal year by 3 months. So the fiscal year for 20 will actually be a fiscal 15 months. So I'll use the fiscal year 19 numbers. We processed 131,000 applications and provided incentives. And here we're talking about the all of our programs, residential as well as commercial industrial programs. The savings that we delivered are across different platforms. So we have energy efficiency programs for electricity, for gas and oil, and obviously for electric generation, as I mentioned. And those 131,000 applications in fiscal year 19, we awarded over $136 million in incentives. So this is a pretty large program. And that brings some results. So we're all here, we care, well, not just us, but I know the focus of this conference is sustainability and issues related to the environment. And so you could convert those savings from our program into whatever metric you like. So it's that in fiscal year 19, that was the equivalent of removing almost 100,000 cars from New Jersey's roads. If you want to look at it from a carbon sequestering viewpoint, that would be the equivalent of planting almost 7.5 million trees. I'm a numbers geek, so I always like to look at the last. I'm like, tell me what it is. What's the amount? How much carbon do we save? So as a result of our programs, we saved almost 452,000 metric tons of greenhouse gases were eliminated. Now, that's I believe the carbon footprint for that year was probably about 100 million metric tons. So it's not quite even 1%, but it's helping us get there. And there are obviously other players involved in helping us reduce our carbon emissions. So those are the results, some of the high-level results. Now I want to get into the meat of our presentation. And so this is our portfolio of programs. I've already kind of referred to this. We have a wide range of programs, at least one program for every situation and everyone, and likely many more than one. I'll focus on the middle column there, the commercial industrial programs. That's what Mike and I are familiar with, and that's actually where the public sector falls in. The municipalities, counties, and school districts fall in, and that's what we're concerned about here. We have Mike and I have a different approach when we dealing with the private commercial entities is a lot different than dealing with the public sector, as we all know. And so Mike and I have developed some strategies, and the program actually has evolved to address the differences for those sectors. So we're going to focus on that today. But I just wanted you, I put the slide up to make you aware of the depth of our program. So let's take a look just at this commercial industrial portfolio of programs. So we have the eligible sectors here are essentially everything that's not residential is considered commercial industrial, but that's kind of a broad definition. But to break it down a little bit, so any commercial or industrial entity, private entities, they are all eligible for these programs. Government facilities, municipalities, counties, school districts, we list that separately. Nonprofits, actually, so nonprofits are not necessarily wouldn't necessarily be considered public, I guess, but they're certainly not private. They're tax exempt, but they fall in this commercial industrial bucket, and also institutional and multifamily buildings. Large apartment buildings fall in here. So we have a lot of different programs here, and they are designed. Not all of them apply to everyone. So I'm going to go into some detail about the local government energy audit. You actually have to be a local government to get that, but almost all the rest of these programs are available to all of those different sectors. You see a little call out at the bottom of the screen about enhanced incentives. So I'm going to jump to the next slide and talk about that some more. So as of July 1st, 2019, we started fiscal year 20, and starting in fiscal year 20, we really ramped up our game. So we had the program had existing incentives that were very good, and we instead of creating new programs, we just added this enhanced incentive. So depending on the program, there were higher incentives. So one of the ones that Mike will talk about actually doubles the incentives, but now this isn't for everyone. So if you see the green highlight up in the right there, so some programs offer enhanced incentives for buildings of the following categories. So today we're talking about public buildings, and so any building owner operated by a local government, meaning a municipality or county, is automatically eligible for the enhanced incentives in each program. Any building owner operated by a K-12 school district, or any public school district, even charter schools. And then recently, for a few months back, we added any building or facility designated as affordable housing. That means any building that qualifies for any of the vast number of affordable housing programs that are available is now eligible for enhanced incentives. So in addition to those by nature of the category, you'll see a map underneath there. And so also, you can qualify geographically. So if you're a commercial entity that is in an urban enterprise zone or an opportunity zone, the opportunity zone is a fairly recent program, but maybe a year or so ago. Generally, those are areas, both of those, urban enterprise zones and opportunity zones, are economically depressed or disadvantaged areas. So you see the two colors on that map are the different, I forget which is which. I think the blue is the opportunity zones and the yellow is the is the urban enterprise zones. If you're interested and you are a commercial entity, you know somebody that is, and want to see if they are eligible based on their geography, this link down here, and I understand these slides will be we will provide the slides, and you should be able to get all this information. But New Jersey has something called the New Jersey Community Asset Map, which is a really, if you love maps like I do, this is a tremendously fun link to play with. But if you click on community asset maps, you could pull up both of those layers, the urban enterprise zone and opportunity zone. And then when they're turned on, you just type in your address of your facility, and it takes on my computer too long, but it'll pop up, and you'll know if you're eligible by basis of geography. But for the audience we're here today for, you don't need to worry about it. You qualify if you're a public facility. And by the way, if you qualify for the enhanced incentives, you qualify. If you qualify because you're also geographically qualified and a public school, you don't get double. Once you're qualified, but you'll see that these incentives are pretty nice. So the first, I think I went, okay. So the first program in the C&I, there were 4 buckets in the C&I part. I'm going to talk about one of those, and that first bucket of programs is something I mentioned already. It's programs that we're not doing actual upgrades, we're collecting information. So we have something called the Local Government Energy Audit Program. It's for local governments, for New Jersey colleges and universities, and by the way, for the nonprofit buildings. They are eligible to do this, as long as the building has an average yearly demand over 200 kilowatts. I'm not really going to get into details with this group as much as just to let you know that it's out there. So we engage with the customer. They fill out a fairly easy intake form, and then we send out an auditor. And actually, the company that Mike and I work for, TRC Companies, a few years back, they started doing these audits. If you've had a local government energy audit prior to 2017, it was probably done by someone, a previous contractor. And before 2017, you got the report, and you were on your way. TRC really instituted a great feature added to this program. So at the end of the local government energy audit process now, after our auditor comes out and assesses the facilities and does some engineering modeling on them, you get back a report. Actually, I can pop to the next slide because so this is the process. We come out, to your facility, we look at all the different energy using systems you have. We had already at that point collected your energy bills, then we evaluate it. We produce an energy audit report. Later on, there's a slide. Mike has actually a picture of one of the reports, I think. And it provides energy conservation measures. It specifically tells you what you would need to do. You maybe change out your lighting to LED, change to more high energy efficiency heating and air conditioning. There's a lot of different types of technologies that energy efficiency applies to. And then we connect you to the incentive programs in our clean energy program that can help you get incentives to do those conservation measures. The new thing that TRC started doing in 2017 is that we meet with the client at the end of the process. We set up what we call an exit interview. We have a one-on-one across the table before COVID. Now we do it virtually, but we have a meeting with the client and present the findings, allow them to ask questions. And since we started doing that, we noticed a much higher percentage follow through with the local government units. And so that's really good news that they're following through. So the next bucket, and I won't cover all these. So you see here that I didn't cover energy benchmarking. I don't have enough time really in an hour to cover everything. The energy benchmarking is not as in depth as local government energy audits, and it's designed for commercial interests, private, commercial, and industrial, that they could get energy benchmarking of the facility. And in fact, some benchmarking that benchmarking is included in a local government energy audit program for public facilities. Essentially just comparing your building to similar buildings to give you a score and give you an idea. So now on to the comprehensive programs. I'll cover these, and then when I'm done here, I'm going to turn it over for Mike to cover the single measure rebates and the distributed energy resources. So we hope that when a municipality or school district gets the energy audit back, that they are willing to use it as it's intended, as a roadmap, as a guide to upgrade their facilities. And so we would hope they would not just do lighting, but they can do whatever they want. And it is in fact providing a good roadmap. So, and now these are the programs that would, some of the programs that would be identified for them to use in our program. So I want to go through those. So the first one, and there are as I mentioned before, these are really designed for any circumstance. So you should not be getting a report back that outlines some things that oh, well, none of those apply. So everybody fits into one of these different programs. That's how we designed the program. So the first is designed for large buildings, large existing buildings, or new construction actually. And the qualifier for large is if the building has a high peak energy usage during the year. And if they do, if by that criteria they're considered large, they would work with an approved trade ally. So for this program, we have a list of about 100 or so approved trade allies that have been vetted by the Clean Energy Program. We keep close track on them each year to make sure that they're good, and these guys and gals do a great job. And so they will work with the entity, so if the school district or a municipality in this case, to conduct an energy reduction plan. That takes a little bit of time. It's actually a much even more in-depth look at the facility energy usage than we gave in that local government energy audit. To come up with a plan, there's a fixed incentive to help defray the cost of that in this program. And then upon installation of the measures, in the case of a public facility, they now apply for enhanced incentives. And in this case, you see if you're not enhanced incentives, when you install, you get up to 25% of the cost. In this case, you get up to 40. So I'm to give you some idea of the scope here. We're talking about projects for large buildings that the project cost is going to be north of $100,000 for these buildings. So I'll play with an imaginary project that will say you have $500,000 worth of upgrades that is recommended by the energy reduction plan. When you go ahead and actually install them, we would give you up to 40% of that. So that would be $200,000 upon installation. It's called pay for performance for a reason. It is a performance-based program. So after the building has been running for a year, we go back and come back to us, take a look. Did you meet the goals in the energy reduction plan? If you did, we will give you another up to 40%. So you can get up to 80%. So that would be $400,000 of the $500,000 that you put out for it. And these are another criteria here is a minimum savings of 15% on energy. So that's a great program if you're a large building. If you're not a large building, which is the vast majority, small to medium size, those are the criteria there, is that your average annual peak demand is less than 200 kilowatts. So either you're a pay for performance or you're a direct install. Again, you're working for this comprehensive program designed to do more than one measure, more than one energy conservation measure. There are approved contractors here as well. This is a little easier choice because there's one approved contractor per county in New Jersey. And so you can just look up and actually I think I have a map next, but I'll show you the map in a minute, but it's an easy choice, one per county. In this case, the enhanced incentives, if you're not an enhanced incentive area, you get up to 70% of the cost. These would be projects typically south of $100,000 and less. So say you had a project that was $50,000. If you're in an enhanced customer zone, which you are if you're a county or municipality or a school district, 80% of that, so $40,000 of the $50,000 would be paid by the Clean Energy Program directly to the direct install contractor, and the government entity would only be responsible for the other 20%. So that's a really nice. So in both this program and the pay for performance, we're talking about 4/5 of the cost of the upgrades being covered. Now, obviously, energy efficiency equipment is considerably more expensive than baseline equipment. And that's what we're doing. That's why we exist. We are incentivizing, using that societal benefits charge funding to incentivize people to help defray that marginal cost difference, because we care about energy efficiency. And so we recognize that because of the price difference, we need to incentivize people to do that. Oop, I went one too far. There's the map for the direct install contractors. So depending on the county, you would reach out to one of those and they would come out and do a walkthrough just like Pay for Performance does, and come back with a report with some measures on what to do. The final comprehensive program is based really on the program, the first one that Mike's going to talk about. So we have a single measure rebate program called Smart Start Buildings that allows you, if you're in a situation where you don't need to do a comprehensive thing, maybe you just need some air conditioning, or maybe you just want to switch out lights. Well, that program we got is an interesting program. It'll sometimes cover pieces of equipment that the direct install program won't cover, and so some customers will use it. And for each different type of technology, there's a different application. And so customers were a couple of years ago, they were like, we like this program, but we don't like filling out the same basic information a bunch of times. So we developed this customer tailored energy efficiency pilot, and it's based on Smart Start. It uses the same incentive levels in the Smart Start program, but it streamlines the process. And if you're going to use the Smart Start program for more than one technology, a bunch of different technologies, this is a good program to use. So I'm going to kick it off actually to Mike. Let me go to the next slide. And I think I have to stop sharing if I'm correct. And then Mike, do I have to? Okay.
I can share his screen.
Mike can share his screen. Okay, great.
Can you see my screen?
We can.
Okay. Thank you, Tony. And good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
This, the programs that you've been given an overview for regarding the public sector are well utilized in the state of New Jersey. Our programs are probably a little different than what you might find in other states, in that individual companies don't run the programs. The state of New Jersey runs the programs. This is in the process of transition. We will be talking about that over the next several months, as different utility companies now are required to file their own individual programs. But what I can tell you right now is that as the current fiscal year 21 program suite currently exists, okay, it's still run by the state of New Jersey's Board of Public Utilities. Anybody who's a customer of an investor-owned utility is able to participate, as Tony described, because of the payments through the societal benefit charges, which you're currently making on your bills. To continue the discussion, what we have is we have a series of programs designed to offer incentives to upgrade equipment or to purchase new equipment, which is more energy efficient than your standard item bought off the shelf. What you're looking at here are rebate programs. Okay, these are programs which are available to any kind of a commercial entity, whether it be a public sector, private sector, not-for-profit. We also, again, as I said, offer a range of different programs. The one thing I love about this particular program is that there's a high limit in terms of the rebates available per electric account or per natural gas account. You can receive up to $500,000. It's up to $500,000 in incentives. That's a lot of money, okay? More than likely, if your incentives exceed $500,000, you have to go in front of the Board of Public Utility Commissioners and actually get an approval for that much money and to be dispersed, which happens on a fairly regular basis, I can assure you. But to most of the entities out there, typical projects do not come into this range typically, okay? And we offer different kinds of incentives along the lines of either prescriptive, as we call them, or custom type measures. Now, the prescriptive incentives are standard equipment. Insofar, when I say standard, I mean they're highly efficient equipment. It has to be rated by an agency like the Design Lights Consortium, it has to be Energy Star certified, has to be rated by ARI, some type of a technical organization which has provided some measure of assurance that this performs, and it actually meets or beats the current energy code, which in the state of New Jersey is ASHRAE 90.1 2016 version, okay? Recently changed. The equipment typically is going to be things that, as Tony mentioned, maybe it's a chiller for cooling purposes. It could be gas cooling equipment, single electric unitary HVAC equipments, rooftop units, ground source heat pumps, gas water heating type of equipments. We see a lot of activity in terms of rebates along the lines of using variable frequency drives and putting in premium efficiency motors, lighting controls, lighting, LEDs are just like flying off the shelves at this point. Most public entities have relamped and are continuing to relamp. They provide a lot. Well, I could sell you LEDs all day long, but I'm just going to continue to talk to you about the programs. We do offer refrigeration. We do offer all kinds of food service equipment as well, motors, freezers, things like even the seals on walk-in freezer doors. Okay, you can get incentives for that because if you can be demonstrating that you're saving energy, that's the point. Now, that's standard kinds of energy efficient equipment. What we also offer is we also offer incentives which may be new or innovative or something which is shown to be cost effective, but not yet quite hasn't achieved that prescriptive type status. And the key is that you must meet the code, the building existing codes, or it has to exceed the code for new construction. Okay, so it's got to be a better than 2% type of a savings than your existing code. The one key feature on custom type incentives, and as far as Smart Start Buildings rebates go, are that they both a pre-inspection and a post-inspection. That is, a pre-installation and a post-installation inspection are required. Custom measures also require some type of usually an engineering calculation to demonstrate what the savings are anticipated to be. Once the savings are achieved, once the savings are calculations are accepted and the rebate is approved, okay, no further verification is required at this point, but that typically is what your custom application is going to be looking at. Tony also mentioned the enhanced incentives. Suffice it to say that incentives are basically doubled for the Smart Start values. So whatever you're seeing, if you get to the website and you work through the applications and you work through the worksheets, they'll help you calculate the estimated incentive. Basically, you want to double that number to understand if you qualify for enhanced incentives. Okay, and I'm going to move through and talk to you about some other distributed energy type resource programs that we have available. Combined heat and power fuel cell type programs. Combined heat and power is also, back in the day, it was known as cogeneration. It's the co-production of electricity and either the successful offtake of the thermal energy waste, or it's either a topping cycle or a bottoming cycle type of operation where the waste heat is utilized in a form that will provide additional savings in terms of cost reduction, but more importantly, it's a better utilization of the resource so that there's minimal waste in terms of the exhausts, particularly important if you're talking about a hydrocarbon type of fuel. We used to have this program where you had to have waste heat utilization, otherwise it wasn't qualified. However, with the advances in technology, particularly fuel cells, incentives are also have been developed which do not require the utilization of waste heat technology. Key information is, though, these must run, they must pass a cost effectiveness test, and it has to run for at least 500,000 full load equivalent hours per year. It cannot just be an emergency generator type of a situation that you're going to get a CHP incentive for. Again, the idea with CHP is that it does provide a resiliency benefit. That is, if your power lines go down, which we've seen happening with increasing frequency over the years, and depending upon where you are in the country, you may be experiencing it quite a lot, given the status of hurricane that we've been experiencing, or other type of climatic disasters which are cropping up. It is going to be considered technology neutral. And again, as I said, either with or without heat recovery, fuel cells are now qualified for the program. Typically, it's a $2 to $3 million project cap. If you can create a critical facility project where there's a black start and island capability, you can get up to a 25% bonus. And if you're using biofuel, you could receive also an additional 30% bonus. The cap is limited for fuel cells without heat recovery to $1 million per project. Okay. Oh, yeah. again, to give you a picture of what we're talking about, and I'm going to spend a little bit more time, talking about the nature of this, only because this is something we find in the public sector, whether it be through a municipal building type of a backup generation system, whether we see it in schools. I've seen a lot of schools with microturbines set up, to provide emergency backup on if the power goes out. Whether you're up in, up in the more rural areas of the state, we've seen a lot of incentives going out where the heat recovery is actually, used to provide space heating. Okay. We also see a lot of some creative applications in things like wastewater treatment facilities, talking about public sectors where you might have anaerobic digestion providing an offtake of some usable hydrocarbon. Instead of venting it or processing it through another waste stream, it can be added to the fuel mix to create, to be combusted and to provide your, electricity at a reduced cost of operation, as well as improving the waste heat recovery process on that as well. Again, the fuel source is going to spin through a turbine, spin through some type, be attached to some kind of genset, and going to provide electricity, which is going to be used either, directly behind the meter, to take care of building load, or it's going to be processed in through net metering type of facilities to get back into the grid. And whether or not you've got, whatever kind of arrangement you've got with your utility company to allow you to buy and sell electricity that you've made yourself. The key feature on combined heat and power is that historically, and in most instances, what we see is the exhaust gases are recovered through an HRU, and it sets to provide hot water and steam. So the thermal energy is utilized efficiently. Now, all these programs that Tony described to you, and the various comprehensive type programs, whether it be an LGEA, that's a local government energy audit, a direct install program, pay for performance, customer tailored energy efficiency pilot program, or even the various distributed energy resource programs we have available, or whether it's just simply a rebate for for lights and heating and cooling type of equipment. Okay, it all costs money. And a lot of public entities are, naturally, like most of us, strapped, most of the time, when it comes to large capital purchases. You don't just provide, a rubber stamp to spend money without some kind of a plan in place. What we have available and what the Board of Public Utilities has been offering is what they call an energy savings improvement program, which provides an alternative form of financing for energy savings projects for various public institutions. This program is administered directly by the board. There's an ESIP program coordinator we can put anybody in touch with if they want to reach out, they need some information about it or specific project advice. The key feature to energy savings program improvement programs are that the project is paid for. That is the energy, and this can be a comprehensive, these are typically comprehensive energy efficiency programs. These are paid for through the savings that you generate each year as a result of the project operation. That's right, your energy savings actually pays for the program. So instead of putting it on a credit card and having to pay interest on it, you're putting money up front, improving your energy efficiency, making this capital investment, and the savings that it generates against what you would have paid with standard equipment against typical other utility rates. That savings provides the value, okay, that pays down the program over a 15 or 20-year repayment term. 20-year if you get involved in a combined heat and power type of project. Typically, these are, you can factor in, various aspects. You could cover the cost of an LGEA. You can cover the cost of a direct install for maybe your municipality. And you've got, 14 or 15 different locations, public work type of responsible locations where your load does not exceed 200 kW on an average annual basis. And you need to upgrade the lighting and the heating system in those particular facilities. You can layer these in to an ESIP, okay, an ESIP program. Key feature is it does not require voter approval. It does not show up on the books as a fiscal liability, and no capital upfront expenses are required. How are we doing on time? Okay, we're getting close to finishing off here. Again, to give you the flow on what happens typically with an ESIP, it requires an initial energy audit, which generally an LGEA suffices that requirement. You choose whether it's going to be a project that you're going to do. You hire an energy service company. We use the acronym ESCO, which would require a request for proposals to award the job through local procurement purchasing guidelines per state of New Jersey. Whether you're going to do it yourself, that is, you have your own capabilities to be able to put it online and develop the project yourself, or you're going to do a hybrid type of a combination of both, where maybe you hire an architect or an engineering company to work up the overall format, issue the RFP, you hire the ESCO to create your investment grade energy audit, and then you can decide which energy conservation measures you're going to use. Then you implement that, and then once you develop your energy savings plan and that gets approved, the board would provide the overall approval to the program and set out the incentives that you'd be able to use. Again, Energy Savings Improvement Program run directly by the Board of Public Utilities. If anybody's interested, please reach out and we can put you in touch with the coordinator who handles these programs. Now, to move into the bulk of what I wanted to talk about here, actually, this is the real meat of the program. This is where you're going to see actually what's actually happened here. Monroe Township's library had a program that they used at the local government energy audit. They were able to, at no cost of their own, okay, that is the program itself paid for the initial audit, and they were able to save potential. The audit provided them with a potential of over 169,000 annual kilowatt hours, 75 million BTUs in fuel savings. Okay, they were estimated to save approximately $24,000 a year on gas and electric. Okay, $24,000 a year. They were also to get a prescriptive incentive that of close to $25,000 to reduce their payback on lighting, motor upgrades, VFDs, and all the various measures you see here on the slide, to reduce their project cost to under $100,000 to bring it to a simple payback of 3.8 years. Okay, their carbon emissions were reduced by almost 180,000 MTOE per year. Significant benefit based upon utilization of a program that didn't cost them anything up front to start with. Next project I'd like to highlight to you is the Westfield Board of Education, where they had used the direct install program we talked about. They had gotten a bunch of school facilities audited through the local government energy audit program. Again, zero cost because of the grant. And they were able to then work with the direct install program. And at this time, enhanced incentives were not in favor yet. They were not being used. So it provided them with a, I don't know if you can read that slide, but the incentive up to 70% was almost $40,000 on a $57,000 project, okay, of all these schools. They ended up paying $17,000 for a $56,000 project. Now, again, Tony's point about direct install was that it's the installed cost. Smart Start Buildings program I talked to you about is just the equipment. Okay, you still have to, buy it, have somebody install it, and tune it up and make sure it's operable. Direct install, you hire a contractor, a participating contractor, who comes in and provides for you all the assessment as well as the overall installation, and they get paid directly by the program, but the cost of the incentive includes labor and the equipment. So that's a huge advantage to take. Another system I'd like to describe to you, another project I'd like to describe to you, was Newark's public school system. They had a number of, Newark has got the largest school system in the state, as you probably know. They utilized the local government energy audit program. They utilized pay for performance and a range of Smart Start buildings. They had the LGA over a span of years, going back, 41 buildings were completed between 2013 and 2014. More recently, 18 buildings were encompassed over 2018 and 2019. By the way, if you've had an energy audit within the last, longer than the last 3 years, you could qualify for another audit. The program will allow for you to do a check on where you are. The approximate incentives that Newark were able to receive was $500,000. Overall, they're saving, well, 1,600 megawatt hours per year. That's a lot of energy, 17,000 million BTUs per year, okay? Based upon local government energy audit, working with a pay for performance partner to put a P4P project in place, as well as getting Smart Start building upgrades where they needed them to be done. Almost, we're working through here. The Howell Township had 5 facilities where I wanted to bring this example up because they used ESIP funding. The incentive provides them with an annual savings of almost $100,000 a year. Okay, just as a point of information, by participating in an ESIP, their annual entity cap was $500,000 on the various programs that they used. The interior and exterior LED lighting, HVAC, and programmable thermostats, those all came about as parts of the Smart Start Buildings program. Another public sector facility that was given an incredible payback of less than a year was Hoboken City Hall, where lighting upgrades were performed, HVAC systems, including controls and low flow aerators. The bulk of these programs were direct install where it was applicable. And again, Tony mentioned the fact that a lot of the direct installs typically less than $100,000. This project was a $55,000 project. The incentive paid was $38,000. They're saving $17,000 a year. The payback on the project with the incentive, less than a year, okay? Why would you not do something like this and immediately start saving and immediately start providing environmental benefits back into the world we live? Why would you not do it immediately? Again, Hoboken took advantage, again, with direct install, the fire engine. Company number 3, a year and a half payback. By the way, the direct install program has a total resource cost measure test that they utilize where it has to fall within they have to be saving like $1.25 for every dollar they spend. It's a hard and fast rule. It's not something you're going to get away with. There is a sliding scale. So if, for instance, you have a boiler which doesn't really give you the best payback, typically in terms of energy savings, if you've got to go to a boiler replacement or a furnace replacement, something which is a little more expensive on the capital side, the scale adjusts, and maybe you're not going to get up to 80%, but you're still going to get a fair measure. I mean, we've seen projects come through that actually have had a 27% incentive. Up to 20, they got 27% because they needed to replace something, and they need to have it done immediately, and they wanted to take advantage of the financing. 27%. It's still a good. It's still. I mean, hey, we go to Bed Bath and Beyond, right? And we use coupons, for 20% because that's what we got. So it's better to coupon, is what I'm telling you. The last example I want to give you is the Ocean County College, since we're talking about colleges, where they went ahead with the LED wall pack upgrades for the exterior lighting. They had a $7,000, almost $8,000 project. The incentive almost paid for the entire thing, giving them the payback within 3 months. 3 months. And again, this was a number of buildings. It was, I think, 3 or 4 different buildings. And they were able to save almost $7,000 a year. And that's the number of slides I have. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you from Chloe, our lightning bug, lighting the way to a more efficient, cleaner New Jersey. But if we have any questions, we want you to get this information. As Tony said, this will be on the slides going to be distributed, so you'll be able to reach out to us directly. And please sign up for our listserv so you get notifications of important communications from the board. And with that, I'm finished. Thank you.
Great job, Mike. Deborah, I don't know how you want us to handle the questions. I see a bunch that have been typed in, comments and questions that are in the chat box, and I can start addressing those. I don't know if people also just want to unmute themselves and ask questions. We could do that, whatever your pleasure.
That's what I was going to say. I think most of the comments have been coming from Bill Russell. So Bill, if you want to and kind of just talk through some of your comments, feel free.
Sure. First of all, thank you for the presentation. I am familiar with the program and support it. And many of my comments were more about sort of my frustration that this is so little when I look at the overall need for energy efficiency and greenhouse gas reductions, societally. One question I started with was have you reported your own efforts or the strategy of this entire program in some science-based context to see what percentage of the needs of the state of New Jersey to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions does a program like this actually capture? And not as a critique, but as to show how much is missing or how much still needs to be done outside of the program scope for us to meet our science-based obligation or ethical contribution for the world.
Yeah, so I saw all of your comments and I'm personally sympathetic and agreed with them, but I can tell you what I believe the policy goal is here. So first, the first answer to your question, and I mentioned earlier during my presentation when I gave the fiscal year 19 results that was about 450,000 metric tons, and I'm pretty sure our carbon footprint for that year was probably around 100 million. So we're talking 1/2 of 1%. That isn't 1/2 of 1% is not going to get us a year is not going to get us to 100% clean energy in 30 years, right? So obviously there are other efforts. The federal government has efforts to hopefully we'll start having efforts again to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So one issue has been that we've had difficulty spending all of the clean energy funds. So when Governor Christie was the governor, he actually went, and since we weren't spending out all the funds each year, he would take the money and to fill gaps in the budget. Well, the societal benefit charge is designed to address these issues of greenhouse gas emissions and reduce our energy use. And so that shouldn't have happened. When Governor Murphy came in, they immediately said they would stop doing that, and they have actually, they reduced at first, and now they've committed to not using it, taking the money. But that it's still upon us as a clean energy program to get out there, Mike and I, and outreach folks and make people aware of this program. But Chloe, the lightning bug, is an attempt to get marketing. We want more people to be aware of this program so that they can use it. So, but Bill, I agree with you that it's really a drop in the bucket, but it's better than doing nothing. I think I thought I saw in your first original comment there. So a really interesting observation that how do we convince companies that they should be using science-based goals and not just getting in line to reduce their return on investment or even having expectations that they would get things for free. So I don't. Other than the local government energy audit, none of our programs is going to get somebody something for free. But
and that's not for free. I mean, somebody's paying for it. So
right, yeah.
Well, I agree with the fact that it isn't free, but there's a perception in the marketplace now that they can get it for free, because I've been trying to sell energy efficiency to my corporate clients, but now they've got this perception that, gee, I'm asking them to pay something. I'm trying to charge them money for my own services, and yet they can get it for free. So it's become actually a confusing signal to industry that isn't as understanding about the marketplace. Right. And I found that to be, I think, a little bit of an impediment to broader scaled energy efficiency.
So in the case of, the sector that Mike and I talked about for this webinar is the public sector, and that's a different animal than the private sector. We don't offer free. The level of the energy audit that you get, the ASHRAE level 2, that is the LGA, you have to be a government, either a school district, and we do that by design. Regular commercial entities would have to, if they wanted to get that level of an audit, would have to go out and pay for it. As far as the upgrade programs go, You'll notice none of them cover 100%. The most generous ones covered up to 80%. And keep in mind that what I said earlier, that there is a significant difference in cost. So the pieces of equipment we're talking about across all the technologies are significantly more expensive. The really high energy efficiency pieces are significantly more expensive than the baseline equipment that someone could use. And when I go out and talk to customers, I am upfront with them. I say, look, even after you use our incentives, it's still going to be more expensive. What drives that payback to low numbers, like Mike showed you, is not our incentive. Our incentive helps, but it's the incredible savings, the energy efficiency savings, the payback over the 15, 20-year life of the equipment. That's what's driving it. But what is preventing people from adopting it is that upfront high cost. So the Clean Energy Program incentives are designed to defray that marginal cost. They don't eliminate it. I think that obviously businesses are still going to make a return on investment calculation. It gives us a chance by having clean energy and high efficiency equipment incentives to get them to consider it now. And so I think that's the goal of the program. As far as, so you mentioned later about the efforts of New York and other states, and you asked about comparing them. So I'm going to actually reshare my screen here. Mike, can you stop sharing for a minute so I can share?
I think I can do that.
Okay.
Okay, it's all you, bud.
Thank you. So I pulled up, because I think this might be of interest to folks. So the American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy has a scorecard that they put out every year. So I'm assuming everyone can see my screen. Mike, is that up there?
It's up there.
It's up there.
So that's their website, acee.org. They've been doing this for a number of years. If you go down, you see they have this energy scorecard back to 2006. So they're rating states on how they're doing. And so as you see, New Jersey's 17th now of the most recent ranking. That is an improvement since when the Murphy administration took over. We had dropped quite a bit. We used to be fairly high in these rankings. We dropped quite a bit. Now we're popping back up. I think we went up 5 or 6 slots this year. So that gives you some idea. Now, Bill, you mentioned in your comments about the programs that New York has done. You see, New York's they're 5th in the country. Massachusetts is 1st. So a lot of our neighbors are really high. This is this Northeast market's very expensive energy. So it's to do these programs costs, you're dealing in an expensive energy market. And obviously you're seeing California and the states on the West Coast being leaders. It's interesting. So if you go down here, you can actually, and I'll just very quickly click on New Jersey's score sheet for 2019. Should pop up. And now it gives a breakdown of that score. Like, so how are what out of the 20 possible points you could get, how are the utilities doing? How's the transportation sector doing? If you scroll down here, you're seeing whatever the criteria they use. And off the top of my head, I don't remember. We're doing pretty good on our energy efficiency policies. They're getting 6 points out of 8, and it gives some examples. The one Mike actually alluded to is changing we adopted the new ASHRAE codes into our clean energy program criteria. So there's things like that. Mike talked about combined heat and power. We got 3 out of 3 points for that. There's things we could be doing. Obviously, we're not getting full points. So I would leave for you, if you're interested in looking at that, and you can go back and look at it over time. But so that is my kind of an attempt to give you an unbiased assessment of how we're doing compared to others. You can always do better. Even if you rank 1st, you can do better, right? So I'll just leave that there. Let me go. I want to go back because I want to. Oh, Mike, why I'm going back? Oh, maybe I'll just share my screen again, and I'll leave up our contact information in case why we talk. Yeah, what did I do?
You advanced.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I was interested in Bill's comments as much as I could read them here. Personally, I see your local law 97 question. Personally, I'm of the opinion every municipality should have something like this in place, not just, San Antonio, not just Austin, not just, the city of New York or Philadelphia. But that's, again, that's at a municipal level as opposed to a statewide level that Tony and I are currently operating under at this point in time. Again, that's more, again, that is the policy level. That's not the actual program implementation that we're concerned with on a day-to-day basis. In terms of the municipal government schools trapped in annual budget mindsets, I think our programs do a lot to assuage those concerns and provide for a bridge to get beyond that kind of a, what's it going to cost me attitude? How can I get it for free type of an attitude? But it get them involved in a process where if they're engaged, they're going to be able to contribute savings, which is going to go forward and provide benefit over time. I just think that's what working. Again, there was an old expression my mother used to use, it's like getting nibbled to death by ducks, well, it's coming off. And
do you think that, I know it's a sort of a broad brushed approach to making these ROIs change drastically, but do you think that a carbon tax might be the kind of sweeping adjustment to the cost of energy, and then making all of these energy efficiency things change in terms of this economic tension that you're fighting? You're kind of swimming upstream against the cost of capital or the accessibility to capital. But if there was a carbon tax, do you think that then would change the cost benefit analysis dynamic and the capital would flow to the sector?
Yes, to a degree. I don't think it's going to provide a major diversion of capital at this point, but I think you're better off starting with something like that. Again, I'm talking just me personally. This is my own personal opinion. This is not what I'm representing, as part of the state's agency. It would certainly provide access to a lot more than is currently being accessible. Tony was talking about the nature of the societal benefits charge, as an externality. I mean, you don't want to call it a tax, call it a charge, call it it's there. I mean, is it going to be a carbon tax? Is it going to be a societal benefit tax? What we have, in terms of, the 10th of 100th of a percent that we pay on our bills each year provides, benefits, which are measurable and which are, consistently, providing benefits going forward. I don't know that I've heard organizations give different kinds of presentations where, taxes providing a carbon tax would provide, enough investment incentive, enough investment capital to develop the benefits that are required, to get beyond the level that we're currently existing at right now. Yeah. Tony, maybe something better to explain that?
Well, Bill, what you're recommending is that really that's a sea change policy difference between the carbon tax and what. So right now, and it's a policy choice. It's not saying one is correct and one is not correct. Right now, the policy choice of the administration, and it's, I guess, a continuation. They've added more money and have decided not to raid the Clean Energy Fund. So I think they're a little bit more friendly toward this approach, but it's still it's a market-based approach, right? We're trying to work with the market to tweak the market incentives. What you're suggesting is an entirely different approach that I'm aware from academic studies. Obviously, that would be a different universe, and you suggest if we did that people adjust. I think that they probably would be forced to adjust. So you may well be right. If we went ahead and did a carbon tax, maybe the clean energy program would exist in a much different fashion because the needs would be different. But that's not a marginal change. That's a sea change. And so,
we've talked at this conference about how capitalism in its current form is not working. And all of your discussions have, and by the way, I just wish I want to emphasize to everybody and to you guys how much I do support your work and how much your expertise at this implementation level is gold, and it needs to be scaled and spread. So all my comments are more about this scaling issue, because
I understand.
I am not seeing the uptake and the scale of what you do at what I see as necessary at the science-based level to avoid, temperature rises greater than 1.5 degrees Celsius. And if we don't attain those science-based targets, all your work 50 years from now would not have been valued or success. It's not going to lead to success. And so that's where I'm coming from with my comments, and I'm trying to transform our mindsets so that we all as consumers and the ones that switch our lights on every day appreciate that there's a consequence for that electricity.
Yeah. So, Bill, when I worked at my previous job before I started with TRC, I worked for Sustainable Jersey and that's actually how I know you and a bunch and Matt Polsky, who I appreciated on this call, and others, and that's how I met Jenna Wurtenberg. And I should throw out a shout out to thank Jenna for inviting us to present here. When we were there, so that before the 2018 bill, the goal for New Jersey used to be to get to 20%, I believe, to reduce carbon emissions to 20% by 2050. And at that, when I was at Sustainable Jersey, we backed out what would we need per year to do that. And it was, at that point, it was 3.6% reduction per year to get to down to only 20% usage by 2050. The goal is now complete energy reduction, complete reduction. Well, the Clean Energy Program can contribute. And we see right now it's contributing about 0.5% of that, of the 3.6 that would only get us to 20%. So clearly, you're right. There has to be it by itself. Our work's not enough. We need to do better, and others need to step up. And as we run out of years, we have 30 years before 2050. As we get closer, and if we're not meeting that a benchmark, then we may end up having, as a society, to make the choice that you suggest and try something much more sweeping.
Yeah, I will continue to think of ways to try and scale what you've done, and the systematic thinking of that we've been doing, within my work, to try to just take the good of what you've been doing and then find a way to amplify it.
Yeah.
And amplify it really fast.
Yeah.
Accelerated amplification, absolutely.
There we go. Yep.
If I can chime in here for a moment. First of all, Michael, it's very good to see you. Tony, nice to meet you virtually. I'm a big fan of the work that you guys do for sustainability initiatives in general. And just on the topic that you guys are on right now in terms of scaling, I think that it might be interesting to see if there's potential for some partnership opportunities that you guys might have for working with other businesses, like-minded businesses, for example, vegan brands, because that would be a really big energy saver in terms of climate change and all of the the farming that they do. So, just from an agriculture perspective and a partnership perspective with like-minded brands, I'm thinking that would be something that I'm interested to see if your company already does work like that. And if there's opportunity for, scaling, that would be huge, I think.
Yeah, so I don't know it to the specific, I think the answer is no to the specific vegan, but I do know that something that's close to it is that we offer this year a whole new category of incentives for horticultural lighting. I suspect it's because with the anticipation that in 6 or 7 days from now, that New Jersey is going to be passing the legalizing cannabis, and that once that happens, that industry, that is a gigantic energy. I mean, you're using the light not only to grow, but for heat and humidification control. So we now have horticultural, not just, it wasn't adopted only for that reason. There's already a small industry in New Jersey that uses grow lights and grows indoors. So it's not, I don't mean to say it was only for that, but certainly that. So there is, yes, but to your specific suggestion, I don't believe that there's anything specifically designed to vegan, but I understand what you're saying. Trying to partner with people that are, we deal with customers that mostly are concerned with energy savings and cost savings first, and they're happy that they're saving energy and also reducing the environment, but some of them that is not their primary concern. So trying to partner with people whose primary concern is that it gets past that incentive problem of
energy emissions.
Yeah, Valerie, I think the kind of partnership that we might be able to talk about offline would be looking at something where vegan might want to become a trade ally of sorts. Now, Tony's mentioned the horticultural light incentive is going to happen, okay, because of the indoor agricultural upswing that we've seen, places like stuff like that over the years now. It's cannabis is going to be an accelerant in this place, no question about it. But the fact is, there's opportunities, to get involved as a trade ally. I mean, we used to talk about getting stickers made, clean energy program stickers, and put them on the van, the plumber vans and the electrical, electricity vans. Why not? I mean, in marketing, things are going to be happening. Let's talk about it offline. We could definitely. Yeah,
I'd love to talk about it, Valerie.
We can explore it.
Sounds good. All right, perfect. Well,
thanks for everybody's questions, everybody's input. I don't know. I guess who's watching us in terms of the time, but
so we are actually a few minutes over, but that's okay. Okay. Thank you so much, Tony and Mike, for a wonderful presentation. Both the recording and their slides will be made available in a few weeks. They'll be up on the conference website. Please do not forget to go back into the Entergy app and rate their session. We sincerely hope you will give them all 5 stars because it was absolutely wonderful. And also at this time, we are having a keynote session back in the webinar room. Today's keynote is Daniel Dart. He is an activist, artist, photographer, social entrepreneur, and his keynote is why he plans in 10-year terms and how being homeless and getting knocked down might be the best thing that ever happened to him. So thank you again, everyone, and I look forward to seeing you all in the webinar room.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.